So let's talk about a really noticeable feature of the tidyverse, and that's this pipe. So when we talk about the pipe in this context, we mean this combination of characters. And so you don't have to type this all the time, every time you want to use it. There's a handy keyboard shortcut, which is Control or Command Shift M. Okay, if I press that, Command or Control Shift M, I get this pipe. Yeah, so when we talk about pipe from here on out, we mean this combination of characters. Okay, so this is a feature you'll see quite a lot. You'll see used quite a lot. What it does is it takes the item before the pipe, and you'll see lots of examples. It takes the item before the pipe and then feeds it to the next command as the first argument. And the way this is used is that you write down the name of the data frame, so SPR in our case, and then you use the pipe, and then you use a command like head or summary or something else. And the pipe takes the data frame and puts that into the next command. So to make this a bit more a bit easier to understand, here's some pseudocode. So this is not actual code. This is just an example, and this is by Andrew Heiss. So here's the same code, but the first option up here is written without the pipe, and the second one is written with the pipe. So let's first look at the pipe one. Right, so it starts with me, so that will be our data frame in our examples, me, and then the pipe. And the next thing is wake up time 8. So I wake up at 8. And then, so the pipe again, and then I get out of bed on the correct side. And then I get dressed. I do remember to put on both pants and a shirt, which is always good. And then I leave the house with a car, not with a bike. Right? So you can see that this is really sequential. So this goes in kind of chronological order. I first wake up, and then I get out of bed. And you can read the pipe as and then. It really makes sense to think of that as and then what happens next, right? Compare that to the way you would do it in a kind of more base R syntax without the pipe. So here you can see that the first thing that happens, wake up, that's in the middle, kind of in the middle of our code block, right? So that's hidden kind of in the middle of the code block. And the last thing that happens, so leave house, is actually at the beginning, right? So that's a bit harder to read. You have to kind of read it from the inside out instead of from top to bottom. So it's a bit more natural for us to read top to bottom instead of inside out. And another advantage of the pipe is that the correct argument, so the argument that belongs to the function, so wake up time equals 8, wake up at 8, that's right next to each other. That's in the same line. But if you compare that to, let's say, leave house, so for leave house, the arguments are car and bike. So leave house is where the command here starts, but then car equals true and bike equals false, that's at the end. So there again, it's kind of hard to see which arguments belong to which function. Okay, so that's the basic logic of the pipe, and this is especially useful if you have several commands on the same data frame, one after the other, right? So if you have a long code block. If you're doing something, sorry, go ahead, yeah.
There are two questions. The first, isn't it problematic to use as numeric on factors? For me, it always jumbles the numbers, and I've read that you should use data variable as numeric, as character data variable.
Yes, that's a very good point. So the way that R stores factors kind of internally is, so let's look at this factor. It's condition, right? So we have condition A cat, condition A dog, and so on. And what R does internally is that it says this is 1, this is the first level of the factor, this is 2, this is 3, and so on. So if you did as numeric on a factor, it would give you 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So yeah, if you want to convert from a factor to numeric, you have to do as character first and then convert that to numeric. Yeah. And so something that I don't know if everyone has an updated R version and an updated tidyverse and so on. What's happening now, and that was a big, fairly recent change, if you read in data, almost nothing will be read in as a factor by default. So anything that's kind of questionable will by default be read in as a character, just so that doesn't happen. Right, so that's something that now you probably won't have to worry about too much anymore, but yeah, that used to be a big issue, yeah.
And 2 more questions. The next one, so it's just a way to avoid center embedding?
Sorry, say again, it's a way to avoid?
Center embedding.
I'm not sure what's meant by that.
Yeah, I don't know what this
is that about the pipe, that you don't like to read it inside out, or what is meant by that?
Maybe Lena can
clarify. Maybe that's a programming term, I don't know.
Yes, it's about the pipe.
Okay. Yeah, so the pipe is a way to make code more sequential looking, or to kind of show the way, kind of the steps that your code does in a way that's easier to read, right? So instead of having to read it inside out, so starting in the middle and kind of going outwards in both directions, you can read it line by line. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Yeah, I think it does. And another question is, this pipe example basically adds a row observation to the data set.
It doesn't really add a row. It's more about, so this is the first command that it's doing, and then it's doing another command, and then it's doing something else. We'll see more examples and it'll probably be clearer, but here we're working with the data, we're doing something with the data, but we're not adding rows to it.
And Daniela asked whether we can read the pipes as and then.
Absolutely, yes. That's how I've been kind of trying to do that. Yeah, we can read that as and then. So first do something and then do something else. Yes, absolutely. Okay. That's a good way of thinking about it.
I think all questions have been solved.
Okay. Great. Yeah, here's another example. I just skipped that. You can have another look at it later if you like, but we're a little bit late. So we know the head function, right? So first 6 rows, and to rewrite that with the pipe, we can do SPR. So that's the name of our self-paced reading data. We'll then use the pipe and then head. And now you see the brackets are actually empty in head because the data is being piped in there. So the data is being added to that. So now that works. It gives us exactly the same output as just head and then SPR in the brackets. Let's see. So we can do the same thing for summary, right? So instead of summary SPR, we can pipe it in. We can do the same with call names for column names. N row, that gives us the number of rows in a data frame. How many rows do we have? And so this gets really useful when we do several steps, right? So here we're doing self-paced reading, and then we're piping that to the column names. So this will just give us the column names. And then we're piping that to number of characters. This will give us the number of letters per column name, right? So there we go, right? It just gives us this. So it's just counting. So X1 is 2 letters, participant is 11, and so on.